Hello students and welcome to this video on IAS 1. This is another interesting question where you must comment on the presentation of financial statements. We can read together. This question says Unfair Pty Limited, called Unfair in this question, is an entity that is reported in the news due to unfair treatment of employees. The entity was sued by one of the employees because the worker endured an injury, and now Unfair refused to pay the compensation until the court forced the entity through court order to do so. And they need to make the following payments. They need to make medical costs payments of 1 million rand in 10 installments, the first installment payable immediately. And then compensation needs to be paid to the worker by the end of the following financial year, which is 31st December 2016. So then the accountant, Mr. Very Mean, came up with a financial statements that they present here with regards to the medical costs. But I don't think that this person now did it correctly. So if we quickly look at the layouts, we first and foremost just have here a heading that says financial position. So we know this is not correct. If you have a heading, it needs to contain the name of the entity. It needs to be dated. It needs to have a proper title. So not just financial position, but statement of financial position. It needs to be dated. So if we look at the sentence above, it says that the next year ends on 31st December 2015. So we must currently be 2016, so we must currently be in 2015. So let's look at this layout. It starts with current assets, and then it says creditors and receivables. So this cannot be right, because if you have a medical cost, this is a liability. So it needs to be displayed under current liabilities, and it should be creditors and payables, not creditors and receivables. Then we see here we have a rand sign here with the 2015, but no rand sign for the comparative 2014. Furthermore, I see that there's no rounding, because we have, for example, here 1050, which cannot be right. I don't think the total creditors is 1050. And they've left out the rounding and did not indicate how many zeros were left out. Now, if we go to the notes to the financial statements, again, we have a problem here with the heading. You cannot just say notes to the financial statements. We must have the entity name. It must be dated. We must have a proper title to say notes to the financial statements for the year ended. We must have the name. So this heading is not correct. Then you will see that there's 2015, and then in the next aisle there's actually 2016. So this cannot be correct, because we must have the current year and previous year. You cannot have the next year's information as a comparative. It must be the previous year. Then they've listed there, or before we go on, again, there's no rand sign, so they've not indicated the currency. And again, I see here a 116, 120. It cannot be right. There must be a level of rounding that they've not indicated. If I look at then the amounts here, there's creditors, lawyer fees outstanding, there's a bank overdraft, there's some accrued expenses, and then the income received in advance is also displayed there. So we need to say a few things about what was included and what was not included. So the first thing that I see there is the fact that they show bank overdraft here. I disagree with that, because here they have a note, and the note should be creditors and payables. But this note should not contain the bank overdraft. According to my understanding, a bank overdraft is displayed in the statement of financial position. So it is not included in the note to creditors, but it is displayed as a singular line item in the statement of financial position. So it should not be included in the note. It should be on the face of the statement under current liabilities. So it should not be in the note. Then the second thing I see, I don't have a problem with the rest. The only thing that they forgot about is the fact that they only have medical costs included in this note. And if we look at the court order, they say there's medical costs as well as compensation by the end of the following year. So they've not accounted for the compensation that is due next year. And that compensation should be a current liability, because within the next year it needs to be paid. They've also not displayed an amount for it anywhere. So the treatment here thereof is not correct. They should have an estimate of how much the compensation is, and if they don't have the amount in itself, they need to deduct it from market related information. So firstly, they have no amount for it, so they should have calculated amount for it, and after calculating amount for it, they should display it in this note, and it should be called provision for compensation to workers or laborers or whatever. So they have not taken into account that this amount is due within the next year, and they've not taken into account that the amount should at least be estimated. So in the required part, they asked you to criticize the financial reporting, and here I've really said quite a few things. So I just want us to quickly look at the memo. So the memo says very similar things to what I've explained now. So again, the heading of statement of financial position is incomplete, and they explain that it should be dated, you need the title, you need the name of the entity. No roundings were indicated. The headings is wrong, creditors and payables. There should not be receivables in that note. Then again, the note is when the note starts, the heading is incorrect. Notes to the financial statements for the year, and the note should also be called creditors and payables because you need to indicate what note you are busy calculating. There is no currency indicated, or there is a currency indicated, but the note does not contain the currency. Then 2016 is that the 2016 that is displayed is incorrect. It should be replaced with 2014 because we have a current year and a previous year comparative, and the note does not have a total. Then they continue to say in the number 8 that the expected damages are not recorded, and this is incorrect because the statements must provide relevant, reliable, comparable, and understandable information. So therefore, the information about the compensation that needs to be paid is relevant to the investors and users of the financial statements. Because if this is a compensation that is a very high amount, I mean, this can be potentially threatening, and that business will not continue to be a going concern. So it's important to tell the users of the financial statements what the amount is so that they can decide, do they want to continue investing in this business, or are they going to go bankrupt? So they say in number 9 also that the actual compensation is not known, but the enterprise must make an estimate. So the entity must go out and see in previous cases how much compensation was paid, and they must already indicate that estimate or that market related estimate compensation as a current liability. And then in number 10 they say what should it be called. They should call this amount that they've estimated provision for damages or provision for compensation. So that was a quick explanation of another example of IAS 1. I think these questions are really interesting, and the only thing tricky about them is that you need to write your answer in words. So I think it's important to practice and look for a pattern and determine certain things that are always missing or incorrect. So this was an interesting one with regards to the damages, but also there's very kind of general things that had gone wrong, like there were no proper uh, currencies indicated, there was no level of rounding indicated, the headings were not correct. So there are also some general things that you can go and look for that will always be a problem and that you can address in a question like this. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will then see you again in class. Goodbye.